Welcome back everyone to part 2 of our interaction system tutorial. In the last tutorial, we set the collision for the interactable and we set the interface, and whenever we go in and out, the widget will show or hide according to where we are. Now in this tutorial, we will be implementing the input system for the player, so whenever we press a button, something actually happens. So let's go ahead and start. First, we need to create an input. So wherever you are declaring your inputs, go there and create an action input. Input action. And let's call it IA underscore interact. Great. Now, we go open it, and inside the triggers, just click on here and choose pressed. Okay. Next, we want to go inside our character class. So wherever your character class is, go in here and look for IA underscore interact. And on triggered, we want a branch connected to the action value. So whenever it's triggered, we will see if it's pressed. If it is pressed, we want to create a function now called interact. And inside this function, we need to get the capsule component, and we need to get overlapping actors. And we do a for loop with break. So break for loop for each loop with break. And for each overlapping actor we have, we want to check if it implements, does object implement the interface. And what interface? It's the BPI interactables. So if it's the BPI interactable, we can actually interact with it. So if it's true, okay, we need to first we need to, let's do a sequence. First we need to break it, break the loop. Then we want to interact with this item. So let's call the on interacted blueprint interface function. And the character is self. Okay, great. Now, inside of this, let's call the interact function. And let's test it out. But first, we need to populate these two functions. Now, the difference between these two functions is on interacted, we want to check if the item can be interacted, and if so, we need to call the event handle interaction. So in here on interacted, we called can be interacted with the branch. If true, we call the handle interaction. And the handle interaction function is the function responsible for actually doing something. So for example, if it's a door, this function will be scripted to open and close the door. This function is only responsible to check if it can be interacted. Okay, so the character here is connected to this. And for the can be interacted, by default, I will return true. Okay, but however, later on, let's say you have a door that requires a key, for example. So you will be scripting in here if to check if the player already has the key in his inventory, and if so, you return true. If he doesn't have it, you return false. Therefore, if it's false, you cannot call this handle interaction, so the door cannot be opened. For example, if it's false, you can print a string, you need a key to open this door, for example. Okay. Now inside the handle interaction for our base actor, let's just print a string. Let's say I am an interactable. Okay, that's it. Or I am interactable. Let's append. Okay, I am an interactable um, interacted by, and let's call like this. Now I am interactable interacted by our character class. So if we go, if we start the game now, we should get this message whenever. Oh, before I forget, let's go back to the input, and inside your input mapping context, add this interact action. So add it, and for the key, I want to be E, and I want it also to be the gamepad button. So the X button on the Xbox. Okay, so X button on the Xbox and square button on the PS. So it's face button left, gamepad face button left. Okay, now if we start the game and I go in and press E, I get this I am an interactable interacted by BP third person character. Okay, great. So that means it's working. Great. Now let's actually create. Let's actually create something useful. So let's delete this and go into our blueprints interactables, and this parent class, let's create a child from it and let's call it bp underscore interactable door. Okay, now in here let's set the mesh to the door. I don't have any mesh, so let me just add a starter pack, starter content. Okay, now let's go and add a door. Great. Okay, let's resize the sphere maybe to 100 or 120, like this. And let's override the handle interaction function to open the door and close it. So now if we start the game, as you can see, the interact widget is visible, but it's on the top bottom right because the pivot of this mesh is right here. So to change it, to change the widget position, just click on the widget and change its position to wherever you want. I will put it in the center here, and I want to also to have a collision for the door. Apparently it doesn't have any collision. Yeah, the simple collision doesn't have simple collision. So let's add a box simplified collision. Okay, now if you start the game, I have a collision and the widget is in the middle. Great. Now let's script this to open and close. First, I want to call the parent function. Sorry, add call to parent function so that the print string is visible when I interact with it. As you can see, now it shows the print string. Great. Now let's open and close the door. So we need a variable to store the current state. So is open, and by default I want it to be false. Then I want to create a timeline component to smoothly open and close the door. And we open and close it by rotating the door. Okay, so right now it's closed. If we rotate it, it will be open. So we need a timeline to smoothly rotate it. So handle interaction. Let's create a event here. Let's create a custom event. Oops, custom event. Let's call it open door. And it takes a parameter, a boolean, open. So if it's true, it will open, and it's false, it will close the door. Now, first, we need to check if it's open. If we need to open it, first, let's make a timeline. Add timeline. Let's call it door rotation timeline. So if we want to open it, we need to play from the start, and if we need to close it, we reverse from the end. Okay, now inside the timeline, let's change the length to how many seconds we need to complete the door, to open the door or close the door. For me, I want 2 seconds. And let's add a float track. Let's call it alpha. And let's add a key to curve, and on time 0, I want it to be 0 value. And on time 2, the maximum time, I want it to be of value 1. Great. Now, on update, I want to rotate the mesh. So set, or you could just set actor rotation. Okay. And we want to make a rotator. Oops. Make rotator. And for the X and Y, we need to get the actor rotation, the already actor rotation we have, because we only care about the Z axis. So for the X and Y, just get the current actor rotation. And for the Z, we want to get from alpha, we need to call lerp float and connect the alpha to alpha, disconnect it from A, and connect the return value to Z. Okay. Now, and the lerp is, if you don't know what the lerp is, it interpolates between A and B based on alpha. So when alpha is equal to 0, it will return A. And when alpha is equal to B, when alpha is equal to 1, it will return B. So when it's equal to 0, that means the door is is either open or closed. Okay, and when it's equal to B, it's also either opened or closed. How to difference between them is based on this variable we created before, this boolean. Okay, so let's say now if we have A as minus 90 and B as 0, right now let's say this door is closed and the rotation is minus 90. Okay, so when we want to open it, it will become 0. Okay, it will all make sense in a bit. So right now, if we go ahead and first we need to call it on hand interaction, so open door, and for this, for the parameter, we need to get the current open value, so and get the opposite of it. So let's get the not boolean, get the opposite of it. So if it's open, if it's currently open and we call this function, we need to close it. Okay, so if this is true, we need to close the door, so we need to call false in here. So not true is equal to false, and vice versa. So if you go ahead and play, right now the door should open. As you can see, it opened. Now if I call it again, it play from the start, because when the timeline finished, we never told the engine that this door is now open. We never changed this. It's always false. So on finished, in here, we need to set this value to be equal to the opposite of its current value. Okay, now if we start and we open the door and we close it, it will close, as you can see. However, if I try to close it before it's closed again, it doesn't work because it never finished. So this never changed. Okay, so to avoid calling it again while it's already closed, what we need to do is to, whenever we interact with it, we need to disable the collision. So set collision enabled for the sphere to no collision. Okay. Okay, and when we finish, we need to enable the collision again. So let's copy this in here And let's set the collision to query only physics, no physics collision. So now, as you can see, we can't interact with it anymore. And when it finishes, we can interact with it. Great. Okay. Now, what if I have a door in my scene? I have another door, for example, in here, or let's say the door is here. Okay. Let's say the door is here. And I want to open it and close it. Now, for each door, we might need a different values here. So for that reason, we will promote these two to a variable. So let's say this is the closed door rotation. This is the rotation when it's closed, or let's call it closed rotation. And this is the rotation for when it's opened rotation. Now these two variables, we want them to be instance editable and expose on spawn. And let's give it a category of parameters. Okay, now we can manipulate these values here. And for this door, I want it to be closed at 0 degrees. Right now it's closed, so it's 0. So let's put this here 0. And opened, I want it to be opened, for example, at minus 120. So minus 120. Okay, so if I go now here and open the door, as you can see, it opened at minus 120, and if I close it, it will close at 0. Great. Now what if the door is already open? What if the door is open? Let's say by default it is open. And I go now right here. You see it played in reverse. We don't want that. So let's expose this to variable also to the editor, and let's also give it parameters, the category. Now we can manipulate this. So if it is, so right now the door is open. Let's say true, it is open. Now if we go here and play, it will close, and play again, it will open again. However, if we take this off, it will play from the start as if it is it is closed. So as you can see, it closed, then it opened. So let's keep this ticked. And if you want to close it, we set the rotation to close, and we untick this. I hope all of this makes sense. Great. So I guess that's it for this tutorial. Now you know how to extend any class you want and create any interactable you want. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comment, and I will see you in the next one.